Okay, so the last two events I'm going to talk about are both the American and French Revolution. So I'm going to sum these up in about 5 minutes, which just is kind of goes to show how quick we have to go through things in this class. It doesn't mean that they're not highly significant events. So a few weeks ago, I was lucky enough to have the chance to see the Hamilton musical, and it was awesome. And if you're not familiar with Hamilton, it's a super popular Broadway musical that combines rap, hip hop, traditional show tunes to tell the story of the founding father, Alexander Hamilton. And mixed into that story is also a little bit of the story of the American Revolution. So if you get a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. If you can get tickets, it's very hard. It's really fun and super historical as well. So now, talking about the American Revolution, like everything in this course, we get very little time to discuss this major event. But as you probably know from your school days and before, this was, of course, the War for Independence from Britain that took place from around 1776 through 1783. You're probably familiar with the basics of the revolution, no taxation without representation in the Boston Tea Party, etc. But many of the, as I just said, many of the ideological foundations of the American Revolution were founded in the Enlightenment, and to a lesser extent in the ideas that the Puritans brought with them to the New World. The founding fathers were very influenced by the Enlightenment thinkers such as Voltaire and Montesquieu and Hobbes. But for much of the war, the colonial army was vastly outnumbered by the larger and much better equipped and trained British army. Really, these upstart colonists were going up against really the biggest and strongest army in the world. So just the fact that we were able to defeat that army is really a miraculous event in itself. So we really don't have the time to go into all the battles and details of the war, but as you know, newsflash, we won. So if if you're interested in revolutionary history, definitely check that out. There's a lot of great stuff to learn about that. The result, of course, was one of the first countries not ruled by a monarch, but an elected president and a representative Senate and Congress. Okay, so last but not least, we finally get to the French Revolution. Again, we won't do this massive topic any justice, but remember that many consider the French Revolution to be one of the most important events in Western civilization. Okay, so like the American Revolution, the 1789 French Revolution was very much inspired by the influential writings of the Enlightenment. This was very much a middle-class response to poverty, famine, and the excess of the aristocracy and the kings. One of the things that came out of the French Revolution was the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which was modeled very much after the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson had written. The French Revolution is really a pretty convoluted event and sometimes considered rather chaotic, but it was followed by something known as the Reign of Terror, with condemnation and death of anyone opposing the new order. This included King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette, and many of the nobles and aristocracy. The French Revolution really represented the first time in history that the middle class had rose up against the established aristocracy and monarchy, which is really why many consider it to be such a huge event in history. Many historians point to this as a decisive moment in European history and all of Western civilization. There's often a lot of debate amongst historians and scholars as to which revolution accomplished more, and that's really probably a matter of opinion. But while the American Revolution, I think, resulted in a brand new country and the ragtag group of colonies defeated the mighty British, many point to the founding fathers' major misstep of not abolishing slavery with the founding of the country as a major stain on that revolution. While the French Revolution was more of a middle-class revolt against aristocracy that set forth the stage for the establishment of the middle class in general. So, I guess you can, decide for yourself which revolution was more influential. And really, the answer really could just be both were very influential. Either way, both were major events in Western civilization, and both drew heavily on ideas of the Enlightenment. And without the Reformation, there may not have been a need for an American Revolution to begin with. So, full circle here, as we can see, all these events are connected in some way. Thanks, everyone.